I worked for Live Nation for over 12 years as a booker and a promoter, and I was the only Black woman in that space. And so that inspired me to create more access and opportunity for people that look like me, people of diverse background, for more women in general, wanting to see more women in more decision-making roles and not just ushers and ticket takers and people who were managing administrative tasks. So I created Live Out Live in 2019, where we provide access to programming like this, as well as internships, mentorships, job shadowing opportunities, and just an overall pipeline to help provide people of diverse background with access into the live music industry. Today is our last and final panel in partnership with the Grammy Museum for the month of April. We've had sessions on booking and promoting. We've had sessions on marketing, a tour or a concert, venue operations, ticketing and box office administration. We've also had sessions on sound and lighting and production. And so today's session is on tour management and what it looks like when tour representatives go out on the road and work a show every night, and what that settlement looks like and what that transaction overall looks like. So I'm happy to be here. I'm so glad to see you all, especially you returning students of the business. And we have an exciting panel today moderated by Dennis. I will allow them to introduce themselves, but I want to thank you all for being here and also let you know that these panelists are future mentees, mentors of yours. So feel free to connect with them, feel free to reach out to them. They are here because they want to share their background and their journey and their knowledge. So I implore you to pursue relationships with them, because if you've heard from previous sessions we've had, your network and your relationships are the foundation within the live music industry. So without further ado, I'll let Dennis go ahead and take it away to introduce the panelists. And I look forward to seeing how this session goes. Thank you.
Thanks, Candace. I couldn't have introduced that better. So today we're talking about tour management. I figured what a better way to start than to have everybody introduce themselves. So I will go last and I will let the panelists go first. Who wants to start? I can't see if everybody's here. Kelly, could you start?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Kelly Distefano. I work as the COO of Concerts West, which is a touring division within AEG Presents. I just hit my 15-year mark with them. I started as an assistant 15 years ago. And so for today's panel, I'm not on the tour management side, not on the artist side, but on the promoter side. So I've been out on a number of our tours as a tour director, doing settlements, doing a number of things over the years. And my current role is more overseeing our operations and business for our touring division, but then I also work day to day on our Rolling Stones tour. So we have them out yet again this summer in stadiums across Europe. So I'll be heading out there in about a month to do that. So nice to meet everyone.
And next up, Kristen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Schloesser. Everyone calls me Gypsy. That started with Bob Dylan in 1998, because that's how old I am. It's cool. It takes us veterans, right, to help the young guns. So I just completed a North American leg of the Trixie and Katya live tour, which is a world tour. It will commence in, I think, summer of 2023. So we have multiple legs. We'll be going all over the world. I'm primarily on retainer with Five Senses Reeling and Obsessed Presents, which is an LGBTQ plus focused organization. So everything that we deal with is queer artistry, drag arts. We also produce Boise Pride Festival. We work closely with Seattle Pride, Las Vegas Pride. And actually, I did have one of the Rolling Stones employees on my tour for my first leg. So I like to steal crew. It's one of my things, but I also like to give them back in time for Spain. So anyway, I'm real happy to be here. I love mentoring young folks in the industry. I'm passionate about tour management. I do think it's a an art and not just a skill. So anyway, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And finally, we have Stacy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stacy Wiseman. I've been in the industry for about 15 years now, graduated from Middle Tennessee State University with music business. And thankfully, my parents are happy that I'm still doing what I graduated with. I started in box office management in the Southeast region, and then I graduated up to tour managing. I've been with DJs. I started off with some house DJs to Louis the Child, and then I went straight to Lizzo, where we did Lizzo and a Doja Cat tour a few years back. And now I'm over into the comedy world, and I started with Hannibal Buress, went to Reggie Watts, and I'm currently with Eliza Schlesinger and been with her for about 3 years now. We've been, even during COVID, we were out on the road, and I actually go back on the road tomorrow, starting off with 6 shows in 4 days. And I'm very excited to be here as a female in the industry and also as a tour manager. I'm just proud to be here and to talk to everyone about my experiences with everyone else on the panel.
And I am Dennis de Groot. I'm the moderator today. I am an artist and tour manager. I've worked with April and Vista, Corey Henry, the internet, and I'm currently working with Moses Sumney. I started out in lots of different positions. I've been a tour photographer, and I've been a designer, and I basically gradually worked my way into the position I'm in now. So let's start with a kind of general question. What does a typical day, a day of show look like for tour managers? Whoever wants to answer first, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at the word typical because in my experience, there's no typical day of show. There are presumed expectations and itinerary and day of show schedule and templates and an order of business to follow. But part of tour management is the constant maneuvering and flexibility, changes due to inclement weather, changes due to incarcerated artists and or staff, logistical breakdowns of buses. COVID has created a lot of particularly interesting hurdles for us to overcome. So for me, there has never been a typical day of show. Do I anticipate, having morning coffee in the jump seat? Yeah, I do. And then I roll out of the bus, and I like to say I'm the first in, the last out. So I roll in with my production team, my production manager, or my tech team, depending on the size of the venue. If we're talking smaller club, we don't have to come in brown tag heavy. If we're talking arena stadium, it's a different rollout, a different timeline entirely. We could load in 3 days before the show, but a typical show day would be roll in, everybody take their mark, take their places, get organized, get their gear or their world set up, and then I would just proceed to troubleshoot throughout the day. Keep on top of tasks, keep on top of anything that needed to be facilitated on the business end, the hospitality end, the guest list end, the ticketing end, just the entire gamut, right? And I would usually start my pre-settlement for a show the week prior, so I'd have an idea of what my ticket audits and my drop count estimate would look like, what my labor estimate or my numbers would look like. And then throughout the day, I would just be pulling audits and pulling numbers and comparing all of that. I like to do it 3 to 4 times a day. And then by the time intermission hits for, a drag or comedy or a type of tour where we have more theatrical presentation, then I'm ready to settle the show by midway through the show. And then I'll close up my numbers, ask for a wire transfer, shake hands, and move on. And hopefully take everybody with me, including the incarcerated members of my party. Typical? Sum it up?
That's a lot. So
That's tour
for,
management.
of course, who are key people that you work with on a day of show, and why are they vital for successful shows? Kelly, it'll be interesting to hear your side as well.
Yeah, I mean, So there's a number of people, and I would say all of the people that you deal with are so important because it's all about communication, right? And it's about knowing who you need to go to get things done. So like Gypsy was talking about, there is no typical show day. There's the things that do happen on every show day, but the reason that any of us are out there is to really deal with the things that make each day unique and to deal with those problems that come up. So as a promoter rep, I need to know who on the artist side are my key points of contact. As a tour promoter, we're working with the same people for the entire tour. So we've already developed a great relationship with the artist production director and artist tour manager and those types of individuals. But then I need to know who at the venue am I dealing with? Who's the GM? Who is in charge of the box office and ticketing? Who am I settling with? Who do I go to for security things? Because that's what it all comes down to, is when you have an issue that you need to solve, you need to know who will work with you and partner with you to get it done. And so having those relationships and also not necessarily kicking them all off the morning of that show, depending on what type of show you're dealing with. I deal with a lot of stadium shows. So for me, it's in advance of that, making sure I have a rapport with the ticketing person and whoever's going to be settling, and way in advance with the GMs and the bookers for those buildings. But that's what it comes down to, is the communication, getting things done, and knowing who you can go to do that.
Stacy, is this any different for you working with like a smaller crew, like with a comedian, for example?
Yes. So I started in the music world. I came from tour buses, semis, having about a 15+ person crew to me. I'm the only person that goes out with Eliza now, but I do have a full team behind me that helps me out with everything. So the first 2 months working with a comedian, I basically had anxiety. I just always felt like I was missing something, because the extent of when I was on a music tour, we would be at the venue at probably like 8 a.m. loading in, doing our 3.5, 4 hour load in, building up, doing sound check. With comedy, I don't go in until 2 hours before doors due to our production and our audio and lighting cues and how small it is. However, it's still a production. It's still something that needs to be done. So my advancing is very tight. It has to be organized. I basically have a template of everything that I do with my advancing. So when I do have that call with the venue, with everyone that I need to talk to for a day of show, that I have a checklist of everything. And then I send that over to the people that I talk to on my advanced calls. So not only do I have this checklist of what needs to be accomplished and what I need for a day of show, they also have as well. Because at the end of the day, I have a ton of shows going on, and so does the venue. So I don't want anything to get lost in translation, because when I get to the show, I'm the production manager, I'm the stage manager, I deal with the hospitality, I make sure everything's good. We do have 2 incredible outsources, our merch company and our meet and greet company, that deals with everything as well too. So having those people on, plus my advancing manager, Nick, from our management company, really helps me with the travel and the hotels as well. But it does get a little intense sometimes when things don't go the way that you had advanced. And it does get a little crazy when I'm the only person, versus when I'm on a music tour, I can go to my production manager or my stage manager to help out. But at the end of the day, it comes all back on me. So it is a little different.
What do you feel are some skills that are useful to have as a tour manager?
Organization, 100%. If you don't have, I have updated templates, I have spreadsheets when it comes to budgeting, when it comes to our hotels, when it comes to travel, because if you don't have everything organized, something will slip through the cracks, and it could be a disaster at the end. And you just want to make sure everything is flowing right and correctly. So it just comes, I really geek out on spreadsheets and making sure everything is communicating to the venue, to my team, and to my client, and to everyone else that I work with.
Gypsy and Kelly, do you agree with that, or do you have any other skills that you find are very useful?
Totally. Yeah, I'm pretty much a geek as well. I've been building an accounting workbook that I use for about 7 years. I have everything in Google Drive. I have 52 different subfolders per tour. So everything is organized, itemized, numbered, coded, color coded. Every receipt is numbered and ordered by department. Have quick response forms that they can use to a Google quick response form so they can input receipts so that they will populate into my overall accounting breakdown. Like, yeah, the geek stuff, I'm with you. Like that's pretty much the back end. But forward facing on the front end, I think a lot of times personality comes into play. So there's some skills that we need as far as there's some psychological skills that I think can be very important. There's the ability to just make clear, precise decisions, period, point blank. That's it. It's a yes or a no. And to be able to do them quickly, confidently, sometimes sternly. And there are, certain elements of diplomacy and finesse involved, or you're dealing with different personalities, different principles, different ethics, different morals. I have to be that rational detachment. That's what I practice. That's one of my keys. So that I think is a skill as far as tour management, being able to, my last crew, I believe I had 26 people. My largest crew that's been under me has been 152. And so taking on the energy of all of those moving parts and people and placements can be taxing. So trying to be emotionally present, but not emotionally over-invested, I think is key, because burnout is a real thing. I went through burnout in 2017 after a particularly rough tour. And yeah, I've had to become very mindful of what I do let in and what I take personally, because this is not the music or entertainment feelings, it's the music and entertainment business. So
Which
that's my point.
Which brings me to another question. How do you stay healthy on the road?
Don't eat all the cookies and catering. That's one of my problems. One of my roles that I have to get better about. I think it can be hard, and what works for everybody is different, right? But I think finding that time, whether it's, if you like to meditate and finding 10 minutes to do that, or on your off day, getting outside around the city and renting a bike and, doing that. But it can be hard if you're on a grueling schedule to find that time. It could be that on show day, you're taking, 20 minutes and going and doing laps in the arena, like somewhere, maybe doing calls up there. Like I've done that just to get myself and you're moving around, but it's just anyway on show day, but things like that, just to kind of take yourself away from everything for a moment. But it's also hard to do that when you're right in the middle of it, in the thick of it, and you need to be available also.
Also, I partnered with an organization called the Roadie Clinic on my last tour, and I introduced the first ever wellness lounge backstage. So we put together line items of lists of items that we thought would be good for, healthy, a safe room, a safe space to go when crew and artists alike were needing somewhere to get away. So we had like ambient lighting, we had yoga mats, we had massage guns, we had diffusers, I had fruit dishes, I had masks, face masks. So trying to actually create a place and a mandatory stop, take 15, you're stressed. We're not curing brain cancer. We're putting on an entertainment event. Like step away, the whole thing won't crumble if one of us steps away for 15 minutes and gets centered, does a little meditation. So shout out to the Roadie Clinic. That was really cool. I'm hoping to continue doing that, the wellness lounge, on my tours. And if anyone wants to talk about that, let's go.
Something that I do on my tour as well is I started when I was still doing bus tours, but I thought it was really funny. San Holo, he's from the Netherlands, and one of the things I would have on the tour is fresh ginger shots. And the first time he took one, he thought I was going to kill him. But by the end of the tour, he was like, "Where's my fresh ginger shot?" But I made I didn't make the team do it, but it was like, hey guys, this is something that's going to make you feel better. So I had fresh ginger shots on my rider and fresh pressed juices. They can get expensive, but having something for your team healthy every day, you can't really dictate what people eat or do on your tour, but having healthy refreshments to help with that. We do that on my tour now. We have fresh pressed juices and it just really helps out. One of the things that we do on tour now is we go on walks, we go to the gym together. We kind of do it as a team building experience when we do have time. But I do agree with the rest of the panelists that you do need to find the time to just walk away, even if it's for 5 to 10 minutes, because you are the main person day of show. Everyone is coming to you, so you will forget about yourself. So that's something that I've struggled with for several years, is trying to make sure that not only is my team good, but I'm good as well.
And on like, as far as the technical side of the tour management goes, like, what are some necessities you feel you need to have on the road, aside from the things we just discussed?
Can you clarify?
Yeah, like, what are things that you could not tour without, like, obviously a bus, but like, what are some of the things that people may not think about that you need? Like, for example, you need insurance on gear, things that on the front end people do not easily see and guess that we deal with.
I like to listen to what whoever I'm with, what they like and what they don't like. So right now I have this, I call it the watermelon bag. It's everything that Eliza needs or might need when she's on the road. Like one time she's like, oh, I need more blonde bobby pins. And I just put that like noted in my head. So I have this like bag of stuff that if she's like, hey, I need this, I have it right there for her. And it kind of shows that she's like, I'm listening to her. I'm making sure she's comfortable on the road. Another thing that I love is my radio harness. As a woman, I don't really like to wear jeans. They're hot. I don't like it, but I love my radio harness. So then I don't have 20 billion pockets trying to find stuff. I think that's it for now, but I'll come back.
I have standard gear that I travel with that is all usually pretty much packed the same way. So just a basic Pelican 1510 that can house a laptop, camera, all my technological devices. I have charging stations, docking station that will charge up to 8 different devices from Android to MacBook to iPhone. I also, on my larger tours and my fly tours, I have a production case, a flight case. So it's got 5 drawers, the lid comes off, the lid turns into a desk. And then I have all my drawers labeled, health and wellness, business. Then the printer, it has power. I plug it up so I can print, call, dial, put my 2 laptops. And I can fly that, I'll be flying that to Australia to use as my mobile office. So get real creative at, putting everything in one location and making sure it travels on a bus, on a plane, however you're going to fly or travel. So yeah, just personal gear to make sure I can do my job.
Kelly.
Oh,
Were you going to say something?
yeah, I was just gonna second what Gypsy said on the road cases, because they're so clutch for anything you need. So if you're settling, that's where you put your cash, safe. If your printers, whatever you might accumulate throughout the time that you're on the road. I was gonna mention all your chargers, because you're basically attached to your cell phone at all times, and need all your backup power and everything, because you don't want that to go down. And then since you sort of referenced some business things like insurance, I was just going to mention that contracts galore for all of the production vendors and your travel vendors. And hotels, all of that, just so much paperwork and contracts goes into it before you're even, stepping foot out on that first show day, to make sure you're covered for all of those sorts of things, whether it's cancellation insurance or liability reasons or all of those different kind of more mundane topics, but things that are so important if something does go wrong.
And to add to that, because that's a great point. So some of my front end and advanced work is building personnel files and folios, so that I always know who my emergency contacts are, what level of emergency contact. And in my in the community that I'm primarily working for now, we have a difference between family and chosen family. So also noting if there is a situation or whatever, if I am to contact a biological parent, or if I'm to contact a friend, and having all of that information in a private file. I don't share that. I have assistant tour manager on all my tours. So my assistant tour manager and I are privy to that information, but we don't share it. And I have had to use that. That does come in handy. So just making sure your gear manifest, hotel folio, like all of your riders and all of your technical forms and assets are all stored in one place, but also just really making sure you're aware of your personnel and allergies, those types of details, like if somebody can't be, around shellfish and your catering has shellfish, you got a problem that day, right? That you want to try and avoid. So I try and collect. I have a sheet that I send out in advance to everyone that's new, that's joining me, that asks for all of the personal information they can give me, that they're willing to share. Pronouns are a big thing in my community. So making sure that I'm respecting pronouns, ethnicity, gender, anything non-conforming, yeah. So just getting all of that front end information along with the contracts. It's beneficial in the long run. It's geeky, it's dorky, it's not the cool, exotic, glamorous side of the business, but hey, man, you got to pay to play, right?
Which kind of brings me to the last part you said, kind of brings me to the next question. The music industry is very male dominated, white male dominated. As women, how do you experience that in specifically in the live music industry within touring? Be interesting to hear both sides, Kelly's side and the tour management side.
Well, I'll go ahead and jump in. I was an assistant once. I'm not anymore, but I still get assumed to be one on more than one occasion, even though, I'm an executive at the company. So sometimes your decision-making authority is put into question, which sadly still happens, not nearly as much as it once did, but you still get fronted with that every once in a while, which will always throw you off a moment. But it's easy to fix those situations by just being upfront about it, and being confident, in yourself and knowing what you are there to do. Personally, I'm also a mother. I have a 4-year-old son, which has gotten more interesting in the last few years when I do go out on the road. Usually I'm only gone for about 2 months at a time, but I've gotten more creative with how I manage that as well. Because that's there's plenty of people out on the road that are parents, and there has been for a number of years, both male and female. But it's still, at least for myself, has been an interesting thing to navigate, for sure.
It's definitely male dominated. I'm not even going to argue with that. I don't need to see statistics. I'm not even interested anymore, because I kind of exist in a world that is so not necessarily cis white male dominated that it's almost become irrelevant to me. Not to say that I'm dismissing it, but I've been hired by every job I've ever been hired by has been by a male. So take that as you will. But I am very acutely aware of it. And I do hire primarily female crew. And there's no shame in my game. That is my right as a tour manager and the head of touring for our company. I like to hire the best person for the job. But I'm also looking outside of the box and outside of, what is considered the old school norm. I would love to hire a Black or Indigenous person of color quickly and steadily. I would love to hire a female crew member, and that's just me. There's no shame in my game. Is it still male dominated? Sure. Does it affect me? Not so much anymore, because I found my tribe and I found my people, and I found a willingness to look past that. It doesn't serve me to fixate on that old school mentality anymore. Like, we're just over here doing our thing. You know what I mean? Like, we're just going to be where we're at, so to speak.
I've dealt with multiple times being a woman, especially I don't really look my age. I look a lot younger than I do, and I get sweetheart and sweetie, and I put people in their place now. You can't be afraid to step up and be that person, because if people are walking over you, or especially in this male dominated industry, they're going to continue to walk over you. You kind of have to watch the way you play it out as well too. I don't like to be aggressive. I like to be assertive. And at the end of the day, we're trying to do a show, and we're all trying to accomplish the best show that we can do that day. And if someone is being a problem, I will tell my team about it. We just had something recently happen where someone was being very disrespectful to me as a woman, and I stood up and my team backed me 100%. It also does help. I do work with my boss is a female, so she does understand that she has seen in the past different situations happen. And it does suck. It happens still to this day. It doesn't happen as much as it used to when I first started out, but it still is there, and it still is an issue. And I just always tell them, I'm like, look, I'm a very nice tour manager. I'm here to do my job. I'm here to have a great day with you. But if you step over that boundary, then we're going to have an issue, and we need to talk about it and discuss it.
Are there, you just addressed it a little bit, like you said, you're not aggressive, you're assertive. Are there any common misconceptions you run into about touring or tour management specifically? That like people think the job is a certain way, but it's actually totally opposite?
A lot of my friends think it's like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Like, there's all these parties backstage. Right now, when I'm on tour with Eliza, it's me, her, our opener, and her dog. And we're probably just doing something funny to her dog backstage. And when I'm on like music tours and everything, it's basically accounting and making sure your crew is getting fed and rested. There was one time I had like my whole team sleeping on the floor of the production office. A lot of people have that misconception that it's a huge party backstage, that we're just running around. But it's, from my experience, it's absolutely not like that. We're there to do a job. We're there to have fun, but we also have to load in. We also have to build the stage. We also have to do sound checks, and there's possibly a meet and greet. Then you have to break it down. So by the time the show is packed up and ready for the next city, I always say, do I have the energy to take a shower, have a beer, talk to my team, or just go to bed? There's just so many different elements that are going on during the day, that what everyone else said earlier, it's a unique day. There's not a typical day. There's something that could or could not be going the way you want, that you need to step in.
Kelly, do you feel that's similar on the promoter side?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, this industry is just so professional, right? And I mean, I feel privileged, honestly, when I'm out on the road, that I get to deal with so many like awesome people that are out there working. And it's just, people that are out on the road know how to get things done and know how to do things, and are just some of the best at that. And so I definitely agree that that's the first priority, is the job that's at hand, and making sure that we all are out there excelling and getting that job done. And so I definitely agree with that, that there is a bit of a misperception about what it can be out there. It's not all glam and drinks and parties. It's it's a real job, for sure.
What are, to you, the on the promoter side, what are some of the key components to advancing a show?
So advancing is huge. It's definitely like possibly the most important thing that you're going to do, because it's your opportunity to communicate what your expectations are and what your needs are. And for me, the expectations part is probably the most important, because you just can't go in to a show day assuming that people are going to know how you do things or how you're going to want things to go. And certain people do things differently. And so it's so important to put together those things ahead of time. And so on my end as a promoter, I'm typically taking whatever I need as a promoter combined with what I know the artists that we're working with need as well, and going with our team or with the buildings, and ahead of time going through that. It's also preparation. So if you're the one that's settling, I think Gypsy mentioned this earlier, that at least a week out, she's plugging stuff in. And I think that's so important, because if you're going into a show and maybe it's a ticketing platform you haven't used before, like show day is not the day to look at the audit for the first time. You know, or there's some weird quirk on the audit. So it's doing all of these things ahead of time, looking at your budgets, getting with the building, and getting a pre-settlement. If you do that a week out, you might see that they have a cost on there that is something you don't actually need, and you still have a chance to cancel it. But again, if you do wait till show day, it may be too late. That person has showed up and they have to be paid. So I could probably go on and on and on and on about advancing, because it's just so important. I have one sheets that, you know, if I'm out on a tour, and I encourage any of our team that's out on tours to do the same, but I create a one sheet for each tour that's combined with our traditional advance items, but then anything that's specific to that particular tour. And so I'm going and sending that out to whoever I'm working with a week or two in advance. And on stadium tours, I even do that one for the box office as well, because there's certain reports I'm going to want ahead of time. We might be trying to open up seats or solve issues with relocates. So I'll stop myself, because like I said, I could go on forever talking about how important it is.
Yeah, you're right.
I'd actually like to hear from Gypsy, because you have quite a system from what you just explained.
I do. What Kelly said, and then I have departmental one sheets per department that I create. So I brand and asset everything to match across the board. So like, for example, on this most recent tour, which was Trixie Mattel and Katya, you can try and pronounce the last name. They're two drag queens. And we had a pretty expansive footprint for the type of production it was. It was more like a Broadway type theater, but we moved it into 3 to 5 cap rooms, which is kind of a feat in and of itself to take a mobile Broadway show on tour, but we did it. But I created one sheets per department. So each department would advance hospitality. I have all my rider broken down into departments. So I'll advance one rider, but then each department will have a PDF or a one sheet. So tech needs, tech wants, hospitality needs, hospitality wants, meet and greet needs X, Y, and Z, real estate needs security there an hour ahead, needs 3 assistants hired locally to be paid cash at the end of day, blah, 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 blah. You know, merch needs 4 tables, X amount of real estate, blah, blah, blah. This is, you know, and I just send those out in my advance. I create a Google folder per show day, and just send that link, and they can go in and go, okay, this is everything I need. And then I get on the calls and advance that and go over it. But I'm also in a unique position here, is that I am the tour manager, the head of touring for Five Senses Reeling. So I've basically created the entire formula and company. We've only done 4 tours as a company, so I'm my 4th tour in, and hiring all of the crew. So I'm also a promoter rep while being on the road as the tour manager and tour producer. So I'm kind of wearing different hats. So I'm covering a couple more bases than I would ordinarily as a tour manager, kind of a hybrid type role. But yeah, I definitely do everything by department. Yeah.
Awesome.
Real quick, I think it also really helps for people that do want to be a tour manager. I started with box office management. I did artist hospitality at venues. I was a house/operational manager for Live Nation for a 3,000 cap venue. I was doing artist transport, because at the end of the day, when I'm tour managing and someone asks me a question and I don't know, I want to be able to know everything and anything about the job. I don't really like being when people are like, oh, well, it's not my job. And I get that for certain aspects, but when someone's asking me for something, I want to make sure that I have that answer or I can get it for them. But doing all these different roles and all these different job titles have really helped me become a better tour manager, because I can understand, like, we have tomorrow, I go to Boston, we have 5 shows in 3 days. And I made sure our runner list was detailed as possible to the amount of luggage we would have and passengers and contact information, just because I've already done that. And as a runner, I know exactly what would work best and what would make it easier. Because again, I'm the only crew member day of show for everything coming up. And I want everyone to have more details than less details, so then I don't get bombarded by a bunch of questions. The same with the hospitality writer and our production list. I keep it very detailed, very organized. And even with our hospo, it's like food first, then drinks, then miscellaneous. And just even to the details of, like, if we need orange juice, no pulp, or just those small things can make your day just go a lot easier. Like my last Red Rock show I did, all the openers got a 6-page detailed informational packet, while the rest of my crew got a 10-page. Because I have so many other things going on. And if you're coming up to me asking me 30 questions, that's going to take most of our time away. And I don't want to waste time. I want to make sure we all have our things together and that we're good to go for day of show. And check out for whoever said that.
Somebody just said check master tour. Yeah, that's it. That's what it is. That goes back to tools. I think tools of the trade. I mean, mind you, I started touring when master tour and cell phones didn't exist. We were out there with maps, like literally like city to city. Okay. So the technology is here for you to use in Excel. Master tour is a great tool. I still use it for every tour. I use Bus Stock app. So there's an app, a QR code, scan it. I have it labeled and numbered by numbers of bus, bus 1 through bus 7. And everyone could just go add whatever item they want for that bus stock. I want X, Y, and Z. I close it out at the end of the day, deliver it to my hospo lead. She gets it to the runner and it's shopped and it's on the bus by the time we go to bed at night. So the technology and the tools, and you know what, like every tour manager is different. Like you find what works for you and you find what works for your people, right? What works for Trixie Mattel is not going to work for Bone Thugs and Harmony, right? It just doesn't. Sorry if that's too old of a rep. J. Cole. So like on the J. Cole tour, what we were working with there versus what we're working with Trixie Mattel, totally different things, right? The demands are different. The production is different. The crew operates differently. You have to take in consideration if I have a lot of crew from other countries, right? And they're used to different types of food or, different climates. There's just a lot of different factors to take into consideration. So the more detail, like you were saying, the more detail, the better, because over communicating to an extent, as long as it's important stuff, but not over communicating minutia. There's a subtle art between you got to find that sweet spot.
It's kind of what Gypsy was talking about earlier, is you're dealing with a ton of different personalities, and you can be crammed on a bus for 2 to 3 months at a time with 15 different people from all over the world. And you just need to make sure that everyone that you're working with is good to go. I like to communicate with every person on my team and crew and just have checkups. Even though I've been with Eliza for 3 years, we still have checkups. We still make sure that everything's good. Because when I start getting too comfortable, I feel like something's going to go wrong. I always want to be on my toes. I want to make sure things are good to go, and that constant communication on my end and my team makes it even better and worthwhile when we are on the road.
One last question before we head to the questions from the audience. We've been talking about all this. Do you feel that there are differences when you tour in other countries? Like, are there experiences different? Gypsy just touched on it a little bit. Like, crew from other country might have like different things they're used to. I myself, I'm based in Europe, so I basically tour Europe only, but the times that I have toured in the States have been completely different for me than what I'm used to. So it'd be interesting to hear that from you guys.
Totally different ball game. Not even the same sport sometimes. It just case by case, country by country, in my opinion. Certain concepts are the same, but the way that things are run, titles are different, power supplies are different, inputs are different. You know, like Shuko is not going to work, you know, in Singapore. Like, you know, there's just a lot of different things. I just like to take it as a new experience anytime I go to another country. I can't apply the same rules that I apply here to Australia, for example. It's just different. It's just different. I don't know.
I think making people that come from, when I did San Holo, I did the last month of his bus tour and half of our team was from Holland. So I want to make sure, and most of them had never been to the US. So I want to make sure they're comfortable. Like one of the guys had to have this special cheese every night because he made us a charcuterie board. And some people on the crew thought that was silly, but if that made him comfortable being away so far away from his home country, then absolutely, I would make sure that he would have a special cheese on the rider so he could make this for the team afterwards. You just kind of have to talk to the team, make sure that everyone is happy. And like Gypsy was saying, when you're overseas, it is a completely different ball game. There's different special terms, there's different powers for your chords and everything. And then also something I look into is just like the respect. Like if you're in Japan or China, you want to also respect their culture and make sure that different communication forms over there could be insulting versus what isn't insulting over here in the States.
Different paperwork too. I mean, you know, your visas, your work visas, you know, all of that stuff. Like I'm currently advancing work visa for Trixie Katya crew for Australia, New Zealand, Tasmania. Then we're doing Europe, UK, South America, Asia, but you know, like I'm just making sure all of the paperwork is in proper order too. That's different requirements per country. So yeah, go ahead, Kelly. I think I cut you off. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no worries. I was sort of just gonna piggyback what Stacy was saying, because I think in certain countries, it's also understanding the culture so that you're respecting it, but also so that you know how to maneuver around it and still get your job done. And so knowing that something that maybe works in the US, when you go to Japan and are trying to get something done, well, maybe you need to interact with somebody a little bit differently. Or maybe when they tell you, yes, that's being done, maybe actually something got lost in translation and you need to follow up more than you normally would just to actually double check that things are getting done that you requested, or having those people that are there that can translate for you. And also since settlement was sort of part of the topic here too, I mean, super lucky that Google Translate exists, because I've definitely copied and pasted portions of contracts while I'm in South America into Google Translate to make sure things are lining up, or asking production people if there's a word like, I'm not thinking of a good example, but like a different word for a forklift. And I'm like, I don't know what this is, but then they explained me, oh, that's just a forklift, Kelly. I was like, oh, okay. So like when you're looking at the bills and settlement, like I'm never afraid to ask a question if I don't know what something is. I'd much rather look a little silly, but then the next time I know what it is. And so I think it's some of those little things that just come up as you're traveling in different countries.
Which is also something I'd like to add. Like I always have other tour managers on speed dial. So like when I don't know the answer, someone else will.
Absolutely. My network is like my greatest asset, like seriously. There have been situations, predicaments, you know, things that I don't know everything. I'm still learning. Like, you know, every tour I learned something new about myself, about my team, about production. You know, I learned a lot about lighting on this last tour. and, you know, disco balls and kabuki drops, just some new elements that were just kind of done differently, right? So always learning, but having other tour managers and other promoters, promoter reps, production managers, other people that you can just reach out and call at any time is huge. Yeah.
We have some time for questions from the audience. I think you can raise your Zoom hand, and I don't know if I can see it.
Yes, I see we do have a couple questions coming in. And so if you do ask a question, we ask if when you raise your hand, you come on screen so that you can actually talk directly to the panelists. So
We
have
got one question in the chat. How do we raise a hand?
That's a good question. I believe somewhere down in the reactions or,
Yeah.
Okay.
The reactions, you click on there. Yeah.
Okay. And so we do have one question. Victoria, you want to go ahead and unmute and ask your question, and while everyone else figure out how to ask?
Absolutely. I just want to first of all say thank you so much for putting this incredible Zoom together. This is such a wealth of information, and I really do appreciate it. I recently worked my first job as a hospitality runner at the Honda Center, and it was incredible. And one thing that I really tried to keep in mind is how can I go above and beyond as a runner, more than just my tasks, to really help out the team and do whatever I can. Just things that I should maybe pick up on that could really be useful, or that could just overall help my work ethic and be as reliable as possible. So did any of you ever come across some extremely helpful and useful tips that runners have done in the past, or any ways that we can stand out or step in further than just like shopping for the rider, setting up a green room? Is there anything that we can do to go above and beyond?
I remember runners when they're positive. I've had runners in the past that have just been kind of negative, just kind of grouchy in a way. And that's just kind of deterred me from my day, because as a runner, you're very important to the tour. And I like someone that's communicated with me, positive, just happy to be there. And I can feel that vibe, and it just makes my day better. And I know I'll make my team better. Something in the past that I've noticed with runners is they'll go, oh, well, I went to 3 stores and they didn't have this thing. Don't go to 3 stores, call them. You just wasted 30 minutes. When it's day of show, every minute counts. And if there's something that we need or anything, you need to also be able to logistically map out. If I have 3 things to ask you, like, hey, I need these 3 things, ABC 3 store, whatever. Make sure you have it logistically mapped out so you're not wasting time, or just call ahead.
Be willing to have fun too. I had on my last tour, we'd had a particularly grueling, we were on day 4 of 4 in a row. My assistant and my production, my PA, my tour assistant, and myself we were just shot, to put it frankly. And we all wanted purple Crocs. Like, it was just a thing. Like, I put 3 pair of Crocs on the runner list. And my runner was like, are you serious right now? I'm like, I am so serious. If you can find those, you will make us so happy. Like, she went and did all the appropriate shopping. She got all of the rider, hospo, and everything that was important. She got my drivers to the hotel room, and she went tooling around. I want to say it was Atlanta. I think it was Atlanta. She went tooling around Atlanta. She had an hour to spare before I needed her back, because I had her on a timeline. And she came back with Crocs. She was so proud of herself. She had big bags. She's like, I got them. I'm like, yeah, we'll go Crocs. So that's it. We went from Docs to Crocs. We're still wearing those purple Crocs. You know what? It was silly, but it was fun. And it got us through 4 in a row. And I will put it, she is on my list. She is my Atlanta runner from now on. Like, she came back with Crocs. Yeah.
I think that's another thing too, that these kind of stories, like these kind of memories, are what makes you stand out as well. Like, that's you remember this, and like you said, she'll be your Atlanta runner now.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any other questions? Jamila.
Hi. Unmute myself. Can everyone hear me? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hi Dennis, ik ben ook Nederlands. I've got a question, obviously. What advice would you as a tour manager give to like an independent artist with basically their own tour manager? Like what production tips and tricks do we really need to know to get our shit together?
I would definitely say have a core group of people that you can trust and depend in this industry. I've seen a lot of up and coming artists trust sketchy people, and that's why you never hear about them again, because their management or their agent screwed them over in some way. That's something I would really just have a dedicated support system and make sure that you have someone that you can go and talk to about certain questions about. What was the rest of the question? Sorry.
Trick, so you have your shit together and you're not like a typical artist hot mess.
Well, I just say don't have a lot of yes people around you. You need people that will keep you on your shit. I've seen that at other shows where the artist just has people surrounding them that are just positive all the time. That's great, but you need someone that will give you honest opinions and direct you into a way that can help you better as an artist. I hope that helps kind of where you're coming from. Sorry, Gypsy, I know you were talking about something.
That's fine. Just kind of tag teaming. Also, I would say focus a little bit on your organization, not to stereotype artists, but artists typically get real artisty, and maybe forget some of the organizational elements and make sure that they're realistic, right? Make sure that you're staying right sized for the type of show that you're carrying. Don't try and pack more gear into your, SUV than you even need or than you can carry or that logistically makes sense. Make sure that you're, only carrying what you need, and try and set yourself up a type of itinerary. Get in the habit of creating like a day, your drive times, your break times, your food times, your run of show times. Just get in the habit of teaching yourself what it takes to put yourself on the road. Practice with one, do a weekend warrior run, or do a couple weekends in a month, and just teach yourself as you go. But focus on trying to keep things organized and try and stay on a little bit of a timeline instead of veering off into artistry world. If that makes sense.
Sorry, also stay on a budget. I've seen up and coming artists, they have everything set and then they go stay at a $300 hotel. Like, don't do that. Like, you'll get there one day. Yeah,
I'll do that.
Yeah, we'll do that. But but I've seen that a lot in up and coming artists where they just put the money in the worst possible places. You need to be building your career, not putting $300 on a hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
But that is just dumb. Why? I've slept on so many floors. I'm not gonna spend money on something stupid that's gonna go towards my, oh my God.
It happens more than you think, honestly. I look at some of these budgets and I'm like, guys, you can't do this.
Frivolous. Thank you. Thank you so much for your elaborate answers, both of you, Dipsy and I'm sorry, Stacy. God, I should have learned everyone's name immediately. Sorry. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'll mute myself now.
We have one last question. Yes.
Okay, just unmuting myself. Well, hi, thank you so much, everyone, for this panel, especially Gypsy. I learned about it from your Instagram, and I'm forever grateful for the invaluable advice you've given me in the past so far. My question is really, I guess it's sort of general, but it's about settling. I am about to be tour managing a larger production than I've ever tour managed before, and I'm really excited about it. I'm very comfortable with numbers. I have a background in accounting, and I'm totally like a nerd with Excel and a contract person. So I've like ripped that all apart. But as I'm going through the advance, of course, I'm noticing like not all the budgeted expenses align with what's actually, going to be the same. It's not going to be the same on show day. And I see the numbers and I know they're just numbers, but I wanted to ask like what your best tips for settling properly and making sure that everything is, T's are crossed and I's are dotted. What are your best tips for that?
I'll go ahead and jump in. Have a checklist of all the things that you need to cover so that when things get busy on show day, you don't have to pull it all out of your head. And you have something that you can easily reference that you're, making things are marked off, whether it's withholding taxes or costs or things like this. And since you specifically mentioned when things kind of come in over budget, I mean, right now is probably the hardest time for that because it's ridiculous how much costs are increasing.
And we also, not to cut you off, but this particular tour was contracted and accounted for basically prior to COVID. And now it's like, well, it's not the same and things don't cost the same. So that's been a real challenge for me to sort of like navigate that. But yeah, exactly.
No, because and budgets that even if you did budgets last fall, it's crazy how much stuff is increasing. So I mean, it's a unique challenge of this particular moment in time in that respect. So normally when things are over budget, I would be suggesting that you really dig into it and find out the reasons why. Are there things that somebody can be doing, right, to prevent that? But I think right now there isn't a lot you can do because things have just skyrocketed because of all the supply and demand issues. But you just have to stay ahead of it, right? And so perhaps it's you then going ahead and making sure somebody, whether it's yourself or someone else, is updating those budgets so that the projections and your kind of bottom line is refocused, because it's a lot harder to manage that right now than it normally would be at any other time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The tour we just finished was contracted in 2019 and was moved, obviously, moved back 3 times. A lot of cities too are a lot more expensive. So just be prepared. Just know Chicago union labor is just going to cost you more. Why? Because they just re-ratified all the union contracts for Chicago Teamsters for the local unions, right? So they cost more, period, right? Try not to stress yourself out about it, the stuff that you can't control. And then, like Kelly was saying, a checklist. So I have a tour accountant on the back end that will simply settle shows with me at night. I get him on the phone. We look at the numbers. We read audit together. We read line item by line item. And, we make sure everything matches. And I shave off as I go. So for example, if I know I can cut some labor going into the 3rd show, which I had on the 1st show, but I didn't know any better. But by the 3rd show, I know that I can do labor cuts. I'll do another labor cut, if I know I can lose some hospitality because I've got some leftover, I just shave budget as I go and kind of just do the best that you can. But just know, I mean, like, tour manager to tour manager right now, like what Kelly said, it's just a wild west right now. Cost of runners in some cities. I saw a runner who was charging $650 for 8 hours. Like, I mean, it's just like stuff is just, it's a little bit wild. I'm like, I'll go be the runner. Hang on. Somebody watch my desk.
We even had, I mean, it was New York, so it's a little crazier, but we got a catering quote and it was the best we could possibly do. Yep. And management, literally, I went to them and I said, I just wanted to let you know, because there's a huge discrepancy here and this is the best we can do. And they said themselves, they were like, we're going to be there. We'll do it for you. We'll be the runner that day. It's like,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we got creative on this last tour. There were nights when, when I would have 1 catered meal or 2 catered meals, we would order Chipotle. Trixie Mattel loves Chipotle. Guess what, crew? Artist likes Chipotle, you're eating Chipotle. That's what it is. Okay.
I would also look at your contracts like at the beginning and before these shows Like before New York, there's been hospitality where I get a buyout, let's just say an extra $1,000, where I can cut from my hospo or other shows and then have that money for New York and have that extra cash just in case. You kind of have to look at the overall tour and see where you can make cuts to make these other shows work within your budget as well too.
Yeah, and that's awesome. That might help us out a lot. I didn't even think of that. Thank you.
But yeah, what Gypsy was saying, COVID has, even though we're technically back, COVID has been still, it's been annoying. I mean, we're still doing shows from 3 years ago as well too. And
yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy seeing that a lot of venues don't have the correct staffing. They don't have enough people. And if people on this that are listening in that want more work, I would definitely recommend going to your venues, because almost every single venue I've been to on this tour is understaffed. And this is the best possible time to get in and get involved at venues. Even if you do want to get into the touring world, that's the best case scenario right now. I wish I had this back in the past where I could go to a venue and start working my way up into the venue. And you're also talking to a bunch of tours every week. I've had several friends move from venue work to tour work in less than like a few months.
But that's how I started, just so if anyone's interested. I literally was ticketing, booking, production manager, venue manager, booking, promoting at a small venue in California. And a tour came through and they're like, we need a merch person. And I'm like, let's go. And I hopped in a van, right? So venues are kind of the fulcrum for that, you know, like.
Yeah, you never know what could happen. It could change and just literally instantly you could find a new job. I always say once you get your foot in, it's really hard to take your foot out.
That's a good one. And on that note, I was gonna ask if each of you have a last piece of advice before we close off.
Someone in the comments just said they had a question. Reed.
Hi guys, I'm Reed. I'm over on the East Coast by New York and New Jersey. I went to college at Berkeley, which was awesome. Had a great experience over there learning from Jeff Dornfeld and stuff. My question is more of a scenario, to be completely honest. I've been doing merch like the past 3 weeks, picking up stuff. I've been referred from my touring friends. And I was working at Brooklyn Made, which is over in Bushwick, where I had done merch and I had, gotten an Excel template from some of my touring friends so I could, make sure that everybody had a count and a good settle. And when it came to settle, the person that had advanced the tour and me for merch, just for insight, I was working for the tour and I was paid for the tour. But when it came to settle, I had done everything, numbers, everything, 90-10 split, whatever it was for the venue and the artist. And then I was also allotted tips that I was unfortunately screwed out of. And I was just wondering what you guys would have done in that instance. What I did was I'd called all my friends and asked them what they would have done. And they said, talk to your venue rep, it's on them. They should have spoken up for you. And before I had even settled the show and throughout the show, I was looking at the previous nights to see how they were doing on merch, what the other person made on tips, how the show was doing, and every night it was enabled. And then before I left, the tour manager had told me that he had disabled the tip feature. I was just wondering if anybody's ever experienced that or had an issue with that. I also went ahead and called other venues that I had either played at in Massachusetts and New Hampshire this past week to see if they had issues, and it was definitely an issue with the TM, but I just wanted to throw this out there since you guys have such great insight and you guys are seasoned pros, so definitely would take some insight from you guys.
That one sucks. That one's a tough one. So they disabled the tip feature on at venue?
No, it actually wasn't through at venue. It was all through Square, and it wasn't disabled. The guy ran down from the green room, and I was even just trying to make small talk, say, hey, get to know him for a second, make sure he's comfortable with me. I'm comfortable with him. And, within 2 minutes of me even asking him something, he wouldn't really acknowledge me and talk to me, but nothing was disabled from the first swipe of a card. tips were popping up. And every other night I had seen that somebody else is tipped out, or that there were tips. Whether I know that they were tipped or not, no. But a lot of the other venues told me that they had problems with this tour manager, and that he was, pardon my French, a dick.
I'm not sure it's worth recon at this point, to be honest with you. It might not be a popular opinion, but I might just chalk this one up as a learning lesson, and just get some type of contract going forward for even these small gigs. And if you are going to do merchandise, I would strongly suggest doing it with at venue through at venue. That way you can at least enable the tip feature and get tipped out. It goes straight to you. Maybe somebody else has some better advice, and send the tour manager an email and tell them how you feel.
Yeah.
This is not okay. I feel, all you can do is advocate for yourself, but I mean, honestly, I think you're just going to be chasing circles,
No, totally, I agree, and I appreciate your insight. I also like your Motley Crue backdrop over there, Theater of Pain.
Heck yeah, it's the original silk, buddy.
I have an original pressing downstairs from my dad. It's my favorite Motley record.
It's my husband's tour this summer.
That rocks. Tommy is one of my heroes.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. So I'm handing it over to Candace now, who has some last words.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Thanks, Kelly and Steffi and Gypsy. This has been such a great conversation. And I just really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your extremely busy schedules, your touring schedules, your busy live music executive schedules to be here to mentor these students. This means so much. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the audience for attending and for your amazing questions and just for your attention to this topic. Lastly, in the chat, I added a survey. Our team added a survey for any panelist, or I'm sorry, any attendee who's interested in this type of programming in the future. Feel free to fill out the survey and let us know your thoughts and feedback so that we can continue to provide these type of partnerships and programming to you within the live music space. Other than that, I really appreciate everyone's time. Feel free to, I guess, again, as I mentioned earlier, reach out to some of these panelists. You never know if they'll have some time and capacity to mentor you and provide you with further insight, especially those who had additional questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to them today, but I'm just grateful for the time that we were able to spend in general. And feel free to follow us on Live Out Live at liveoutlive_LA, or subscribe to our community at liveoutlive.com so that you can learn more about this type of live music programming. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
I also wanted to just say one last thing. Something that I really was strongly told coming up in this industry is, do not judge yourself and compare yourself to other people. Do not compare it to me and Gypsy and everyone else on this panel. Your journey is your journey and you got this. And if I know we all put our contact information out there, feel free to reach out, but don't compare yourself to others. Everyone is a different journey on where they want to go in the music industry, and you got this.
Amazing advice. Thank you so much, Stacy, for those last words.
And thank you, Candace, for putting this all together. This has been a great series, and we're excited for all of the guests who came, and look forward to continuing this, and hopefully be back in the fall. So thank you again for your efforts in putting this together. This was amazing.
No problem. Thank you, Skylar, for the partnership. And we look forward to being back in the fall and coming with new topics, more panelists and professionals, and just a deeper dive into the live music industry so that we can arm and equip you guys for your future careers in that space.
Awesome.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.